You're listening to the Tony Conley Morning Show on More Compelling Talk Radio, 1320 WILS, 1320WILS.com. Senior Air Force leaders have drafted a budget-driven plan that would strip the 3- and 4-star generals who oversee major commands of their authority to manage their bases. So we're going to talk a little bit about this in another story with Colonel Kimberly Olson, who's retired U.S. Air Force. She's also the president and CEO of Grace After Fire. Colonel Olson, how are you?
Good morning, Tony. Always a pleasure.
For folks who aren't familiar with Grace After Fire, tell us about it.
Well, Grace After Fire is a nonprofit that helps women veterans help themselves, and we do that by helping them integrate after military service back into their communities and the workforce.
Colonel Olson, before we talk about the story that I mentioned in the open, I want to get your take on what's happening with the VA leadership, and the VA hospitals. I know this is a story that you're following, and you have a lot of concern for it.
Well, a lot of concern because it absolutely impacts those young women that we work with, and as much as the VA has tried in recent years, it's just a shame that every time, it's like a one step forward and two step backs about, there's lots of pressure on them to perform, and then when pressure comes, people, as we've seen in the news, try to cheat the system, if you will, by adjusting the reporting requirements. But at the end of the day, veterans get hurt when the VA doesn't step up and do the right thing.
Okay, this came to the forefront in the media. This is something that you and I have been talking about for years, and I've been talking with other folks. So we've kind of known about this, but in the media lately we've learned that there could be a conspiracy, and that what it's cost is lives. There have been former service folks with cancer and other serious injuries who've died because they couldn't get in to see a physician.
Absolutely, and that is appalling. And the way you fix that stuff is you get rid of folks in the leadership positions that have forgotten what the VA's business is, and the VA's business is taking care of veterans. It's just a shame because a lot of the folks that work within the VA system, because we've got to be careful, Tony, not to lump everybody into that, are caring. There's providers that really want to do the right thing. But sometimes these large bureaucracies churn slowly and, again, forget who their primary customer is, and that is those young men and women and old men and women who serve this country in uniform.
Do you believe these stories are true?
Well, I always think, Tony, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'm not sure it's like an overall conspiracy, but, you and I have been around the block and know that when pressure comes on reporting, people then sometimes can change reporting to make themselves look better than what they are. So, good on the VA leadership in the central part that puts pressure to make the VA perform and makes them accountable. But if you don't fire people, don't perform, it's just an empty threat.
I find it interesting that cutting funds for the VA has been happening quite a bit, and I wonder if that may have, how much that may have contributed to this challenge.
That's a really good point, and boy, you sure hope not. You sure hope that people don't put other people's lives at stake just so that their budgets get plussed up. I mean, the VA is a $9 billion organization, and for $9 billion, you better be able to do your business, or let's find somebody else to do it for you.
All right, so what do you think about the senior Air Force leaders drafting this budget-driven plan that would strip 3- and 4-star generals who oversee major commands of their authority to manage their bases?
Well, I think it is kind of standard practice, Tony, that after we've had conflicts, just like post-World War II, Korea, Vietnam, that the military has a huge adjustment in its budget, which normally means it goes down. And instead of gutting the forces and personnel and equipment and weapons, what the Air Force is going to do is say, we got a lot of headquarters here. Let's take off some of these layers of the headquarters. And that's because the military, is always in an evolution, changing for the battle space it has to fight in. And with today's communication, maybe you don't need 4 layers of oversight. So in a way, it's a very wise thing to do if you want to stay focused on your troops and their equipment and their safety.
So you support it?
Yeah, I do. I do, given what I've been in budget drills and budget cuts before, and they're quite painful. And you rather see them cut management, if you will, versus the troops that actually have to do the business of our military.
We've got enough generals anyway, don't we?
They say, well, somebody else said, we have more admirals than ships. And it's like,
Oh, my goodness.
So, I'm sure the generals on it.
Yeah. It's easy for us to say.
Yeah, in the general defense, these are very experienced men and women, and so you do want them there. You don't want to get rid of all of them.
We've been talking with Colonel Kim Olson, who's retired U.S. Air Force. She's the president and CEO of Grace After Fire. Thanks so much, Colonel Olson.
Thanks for giving vets a voice, Tony.
And thank you for listening to the Tony Conley Morning Show on More Compelling Talk Radio, 1320 WILS and 1320WILS.com.